What is up, everybody? Good evening and welcome to episode 111 of Hobby Hotline. This is Tuesday night's overtime edition. My name is Drew, and joining me today, we've got Mr. Mike Moynihan. What's going on, dude?
What's up? I see a lot of Texas people already in the chat. I love it.
A whole lot from Texas in the chat.
My fellow Texans.
Then also joining us tonight, we have the man himself, Mr. Yamwax. What's going on, dude?
Great to be back so quickly. I'm keeping it cool up here in Minneapolis to balance out the Texas. So
yeah.
I heard there's some news today. We'll get into that soon enough.
Yeah, I don't. Apparently, they didn't wait long to start the news in 2022. I think what's going on, Rich Klein, Canton Card Collector, Bakersfield, California, Texas Card Dude. What's up, Carl? Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. And as always, guys, remember to call in, join the show. We'll put the link in the chat here in just a moment. Call in anything you'd like. Would love to have you guys on. But yeah, as you said, talk about the news of the day, and started off a new year and started off with a whole lot of news regarding the future of the hobby, at least, and at least some crazy news with Fanatics purchasing Topps. So Mike, I see you decked out in the Topps gear. I'm assuming this is a pretty happy day for you. So I mean, what did you guys think of this when you heard it?
Yeah, I was over the moon excited. I'm honestly surprised it happened so quickly. I thought it was going to take a little longer. I thought Topps might hold out a little longer and maybe use their leverage of their brand, but glad it's over. I mean, seriously, like, great.
Yeah.
I thought, I knew it's not a question of was it going to happen. The timing of it was interesting to me. And I think Topps just saw the writing on the wall sooner rather than later. So yay.
Yeah, Yamwax, what'd you think, man?
Yeah, same. I mean, let's get this thing moving, right? Like, I don't think people wanted to be sitting on our hands for the next year, continuing just to wonder, hey, is it going to be Topps? Is it going to be UD? We still don't know what, moves B and C could be. So we'll stay tuned on that. And we might have to wait a year, and it might never happen, but it is exciting. And I think there was I just felt like this giant sigh of relief from the Mike Moynihans of the world out there, especially the baseball collectors, knowing that that heritage attached to baseball is going to be there, and then for individuals more like me, I'm more on the basketball side, the non-sport side. We get really excited that we could possibly see some of these exciting former brands, Finest, Chrome, and a few other things come back. And so there's a lot of juice behind this. I think the hobby's really excited and in general, pretty positive, as positive as you can be from where we are right now.
Yeah, as I was saying to Mike before the show, I'm a huge basketball and football guy, and I'm also a massive Topps Chrome super collector when it comes to my Panthers and stuff like that. So to be able to know that I'm getting Topps Chrome basketball and football back with logos, everything attached to it, it's pretty awesome.
For sure.
It's funny how you said the old brands, Chrome and this, and I'm like, no, those are still all going for me on baseball. Yeah. Like it's all that all happens all the time.
F1 as well, and you've got the Steam on F1 as well there too with Topps Chrome.
What if they didn't release basketball Chrome or football Chrome? What if that doesn't get put back on the table?
Well, I know Topps. I mean, this can all change now, but I know they did show images earlier in the year of at least Topps Finest being released this year in some form with the Dirt Nowitzki auto that they showed. It was a completed card and signed. It was not a mock-up. It was an actual photo of a card. So there is some sort of Topps Finest basketball being released this year, but I don't know if that's going to be some online Topps exclusive limited release, kind of like they do with Finest flashbacks in baseball, or if it's going to be a full-on release. Nobody knows, but I would think if you're going to have those brands, you can't not bring it back. There's such a die-hard collecting base for Topps Chrome, especially Topps Chrome rookie cards. I mean, if you look at any basketball player who has them, those are the cards, Chrome and Finest, that people want. So I would think that they wouldn't get those brands and then not do it. But I mean, we've seen crazier.
one of the first voices out of the gate was a pretty powerful one in the response in Nat Turner's Nat Turner. The chairman of Collectors Universe came out right away and said, "This is great. We're going to have Finest and Chrome again, and you're going to have big time collectors like that banging the table. I can't imagine that they don't roll it out." Now, I think between the series collectors of Chrome or Finest, it's what version of those are we going to see? Are we going to see complete copies of, say, 03 or 04 or 97 or whatever? Or are we going to see new variations of them? So that'll be pretty interesting to see what they do.
Well, you got to remember what Topps Chrome is. It's a play on the base set, right? Yeah. So you got the flagship set, and then you got a Chrome version of that, right? So you got to imagine that would be a similar play. They'll have a 2023 Topps basketball release, base set, and then the corresponding Chrome set to go with it. And then you get, can you imagine having Ginter basketball, Ginter football, and what about Topps Heritage basketball and football? Like, how cool would that be to use the same idea of Heritage, starting at the beginning of Topps football and running through, just like they do with baseball? That would be pretty epic, I think.
And so they also have the Bowman brand with that as well, correct? So, I think about, if you're talking about heritage of things, I would love to see a real throwback come back with something like 1948 Bowman, the first basketball set, and get these odd shaped cards. Like, don't do it to the way they did it in 96, where they produced it on like a full size card as a throwback. Like, do it in these old school cards. That's my cry to Luber. I'd love to see 48 Bowman basketball style come back in football, basketball, anything, because they're such throwbacks.
Yeah, that 70s card show says the tall boys. Yeah, throw some tall boys out there. Bring it all back. And Rich Klein, yes, Panini does still have the basketball and football license. It does run through, I believe, 2025. I think I think all of those licenses do go together. I'm not exactly sure how the basketball and football did shake out, but I know they have it at least through this year and next year. But beyond that, I am not sure. But they're eventually going to have them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be interesting to see what they roll out the brand on first. Like, can they roll it out first on non-sport cards? Could we see a mashup of like the 2011 Topps American Pie set, which is a non-sport culture set, and then blend it with a Topps Chrome type of look? Like, could we see non-sport celebrity cards with classic Chrome and Finest looks? That would be awesome.
That would.
Yeah, I think all of that, the possibilities that it opens, the doors that it is. Okay, what begins in 2026 for NBA. That's what I thought. I thought it was a couple of years. Yeah, 2026 for both. Thanks, 1 million Cubs. So yeah, 2026 is when you're going to get all of that. We're going to bring in another one of Hobby Hotline's hosts here real quick, straight from Texas, Mr. Texas Card Dude, Brad Bethune. What's up, dude?
Hello and and this is Mike, your baseball card collector from the Vintage Cardboard, as a tribute to
you could not have done that any worse. First of all, it's yo and hello. It's not hello and yo. And it's just baseball collector. That's just my name, baseball collector.
John paid me to do it. I
do collect cards and a bunch of other stuff. What's up, Brad?
What's up, yo? John paid me to do it. He paid me well, so I had to make sure that I did it.
There you go.
Yeah, don't even get me started on how much John Newman screws up my name all the time.
Well, I at least made it semi, legible or whatever you want to call it. So, and you say nobody ever calls in whenever you're on, so I thought I'd call in whenever you were on.
Yeah,
so,
first caller.
Off the chair. There you go.
First caller while I've been on the show.
My first caller too. This is my third time on. No callers yet, so I love it. And I'm gonna say, like, tonight, if there's a night that everybody should come on, another host, get in here, man. Rich Klein, I'd love to see you jump in. Let's get this thing 6 panels wide.
Hey,
there's a lot
if you're on, Suze especially, I want to hear from you.
Nobody will be able to talk if Rich comes on. I don't know what you're talking about.
So here's an interesting thing to throw out to everybody, right?
Yeah.
I think Fanatics was probably behind the scenes negotiating with all of the card companies.
Yes.
Topps bit first would be my guess. And now, those licenses go till 2025 through 2025. That could also change if Fanatics indeed bought Panini. I see no reason why they should do that. I don't know why they would spend the money to acquire a brand like Panini. It doesn't mean they wouldn't do it. I mean, if the price is right, I think they will, just to start earlier. But I have a hard time imagining that coming to fruition. I think Upper Deck stays in its lane and keeps doing what it's doing. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But I got to think that Topps just got the best. I'm sure they got offered the most money. It's the most iconic brand with the most. I think. I mean, the NFL is pretty big. NBA.
Topps has that cachet though. Like, they've got that name recognition, I think. And you said his name, Brad, and asking you shall receive. We will bring in one more person to the show, Mr. Rich Klein.
It was Mr. Yam that asked me, but I was going to say with Yam and John here.
Yeah.
With Yam and Mike here. Sorry, not John. With Yam and Mike here.
See, even he does it.
But somebody's got to counter Brad.
There you go.
There you go. So how's it going, Rich?
Hey, look, I'm just at home repricing cards for the next Dallas card show next week. Just chilling, and wife and mother-in-law are out at a holiday dinner, so it's a good night for me to call in. This is huge news.
Yeah,
and Suze has talked about it both in our chat and on various Twitter and through her card chat things, and she kind of knew it was coming, but I think even she was surprised as how quickly.
Yeah.
And can we talk about honestly, I think the dollar amount's low. I think it was cheap. I mean, I think they got it for cheap. I think it should have been
But wasn't Topps valued at like $400 million like 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah.
And then it was going to be expanded when they went public, but this is actually in line with the previous valuation with Topps. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it went that low. I think it went fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, it is just the card brand. Topps retained everything else that they did have. So, they still have the bubblegum brand and all that stuff that they do have. Yeah.
They still got Bazooka.
But it is interesting to see the valuation.
I would love to see, hopefully, maybe a Bazooka brand cards. I mean, that'd be kind of cool if they could cross promote at one point in time and do like the old school Bazooka bubble baseball, Bazooka bubble gum card. I'll get it out eventually. Yeah. You know what I mean? Bazooka cards. Yeah. And then the Bazooka big boom bats and stuff like that. The old stuff they used to do. And then put bubblegum back into cards.
There you go. Well, we're going to bring it. Speaking of bubblegum, the only bubblegum you're going to find in cards right now is some stale gum. So how about we bring some in?
Here we go.
Going on.
Yeah, it's on. It's a party now.
There you go. Chris Harris, what's up, man?
Not from my car this time.
Mike returns the minute Chris shows up.
Well,
I see how it is.
My dog was whining underneath. I'm like, I can't have this. Hold on. Let me take my dog out of here. So
I think you need to move that pillow over, Mike, and show a little bit more of that Texas Ranger logo in the background.
Just move my camera.
Oh, there you go. For all y'all Yankees, there's the Texas Ranger logo. Yeehaw.
I just like to show the beast,
There you go. That is a beast, a true honor and beast. That's the bomb.
Yeah,
that is the bomb.
So I just want to react. I want to react to Rich quick, and just say that when I saw Michael Rubin today welcome 350 new staff members, to Fanatics, it was like that really brought it home. Like, this is real. These are, members of a company moving, and they're ready to go. They're going to get them going right away. Like, this integration it's not on hold. Like, this is going to move quickly. And then the valuation thing, that's interesting. I would check out Brian Gray's tweets. He had a pretty vigorous debate.
I saw that. He thought it should be a B in front of it, and yet.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I think he's kind of like finagling. Hey, they've got some stock rollout going on, but there's also debt, and a couple $100 million in debt, is my understanding. So I bet that sort of stuff balances out. But in the end, the projections and the numbers, they were looking at $800 to $900 million in revenue this year. So you got to figure they came in about 1x of earnings. So that's not super high, but it does seem appropriate considering all they lost.
Yeah, I mean, Fanatics, they're not run by Ruben's a pretty smart guy. He's done some pretty good things. I mean, and I know no business is perfect, but he's also been very socially active, which is something you can never say Michael Eisner has never been. And it'll be very interesting to have a more socially active CEO too in the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
We've never had those before.
I've been out of the loop today. I'm sorry. Did Ruben do a press conference, or did he come out and do where did you see him welcoming the employees? Or was it on Twitter or what?
He had a series of tweets. He also announced when he announced the sale on Instagram, he had celebrities jumping in, congratulating him. Like Tom Brady, congratulated him. It's just cool to see Tom Brady commenting on cards again. So that's great. And so, like to Rich's point about someone who's out there and is super connected to the celebrity side of the world, it can't hurt that he's so engaged with cards. And Luber too. Luber, I think that's really important with the brand, is that Luber's not afraid to get out and talk about it.
Yeah.
And as they roll out new cards, like Luber's going to be really out there on the shows and discussing things.
Drew, I know you've talked to Luber at least on more than one occasion.
Oh yeah. I
mean, you're very impressed by him, if I remember correctly.
Oh, absolutely. Josh is brilliant. He's a very smart guy, and he's very in tune with the hobby all the way down to the bare bones of it. You would not know the amount of people that have stood next to him at a card show and probably dealt with him and had no clue is mind-blowing, because he will not, walks around, looks just like a normal guy, doesn't, present himself. Now everyone knows who he was, but, when he was doing all the stuff before, he was deep in the hobby, and he's someone that is very connected all the way down to collectors at heart. And so him being that main centerpiece, to me, I think if you're going to have someone like that in there, he's a great one to have.
And he's definitely walked around at least two or three of the Dallas card shows last year.
Yep.
Without being very public. It's sort of like Dr. Beckett.
Yes.
Unless you know him, you would not know who he is.
Exactly.
So
very good analogy.
So that's the same way Jim did it. He did it from a very boots on the ground, I want to see what's going on level.
And that's the area that Josh knows best.
So he's very good. So I'm all. So I don't want to say I'm all in, but it's definitely encouraging to have collectors at the top of the food chain of the company it's going to be running, basically baseball, football, and basketball cards.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think the important part, really, to Luber being out front and being a collector, is that when it comes time, it sounds like Fanatics, just based on some things we've heard, might have a two-prong approach. They want to get cards everywhere. They want to get cards in every retail facility we can think of. And I think some of those are the bulk cards because they want kids and everyone to have access to the hobby. Now, those might not be the valuable cards, but as collectors, we're going to be seeking out the short prints and the runs. And that story can be told two different ways. Hey, it's junk wax, there's cards everywhere. Or this is a great era for collectors with all these amazing brands back. And to have a spokesperson like Josh, who really is a collector and can get out and tell those stories, I think is important to crafting the narrative so that everybody's enthusiastic.
Well, I want to ask you guys something real quick based off of that. And I think we're at a time in the hobby now where, even if we get to an era, I would think it's awesome if they were able to get cards into everyone's hands and get it into kids' hands and make some sets that are designed exclusively for them. But I think as a hobby and as a community and as an industry, it's moved into the point where collectors are going to separate those lower end sets from the higher end sets. I don't think they're going to look at it as mass produced like before. I think they're just going to look at and find the sets that they value the most.
Yeah. How cool will it be to have, instead of having, retail only boxes or how about retail only sets? How about actually having something like a Heritage or an Archives exclusively into the retail stores? And then you've got flagship and all the.
They already have that. It's like Bowman Platinum, Topps Fire, and Gallery.
Yeah, but you can still find those in the.
They're not good products, but they are retail only.
Well, you can still find them in the. What if Fanatics says, if we find it, be like in the technology realm where if you find them in the stores, there goes your license. So
how do you, Brad? How do you prevent a
I don't know.
store from doing business? I mean, that's a problem. I mean,
no,
what are you going to
it's
do?
done all the
Send
time.
somebody?
It's
I
done
mean,
all the time. at the
I go to
technology
a
center.
retail store. I buy Bowman Platinum, let's say.
Mhm.
I pull an autographed card. You mean I can't sell that card at the next Dallas card show?
No,
Think about it. A store has to have a right to sell stuff.
not if it's retail to Fanatics exclusive only, then it's considered under gray marketing, and you would be under. You could have your license pulled. It's done all the time in the IT world. Why couldn't you do the same thing in cards?
Yeah.
Because I'm a
see it
store
both
owner. I
ways.
don't know, Brad. I don't know every product. You walk in with a box. I need it for my business. I buy the box. I don't know it's retail only. And there will be store owners that really don't know. Most store owners would, but there could very well be store owners that don't know. And if they're a store owner and you don't know, that's not fair because you're trying to stay in business.
There's stuff in there's actually with HP specifically. There's a group that actually is in control or in not control. Control is probably not a great word, but they're under. Their job is to make sure that there's no gray marketing. So, yes, if it happens once, hand slap, twice, hand slap. But if you see the continuous thing, that HP will pull your license, you won't be able to sell their product. So, I'm just using that as an example. I don't know.
Well, Brad, you have a part-time job at Willow Bend Mall.
Right.
You know there's a lid store at Willow Bend Mall.
Right.
And you know that's owned by Fanatics.
Yes.
Have you ever looked in the store and realized that store can be repurposed to sell packs or boxes?
100%. And I'm sure that there will be lids that carry cards all over the place. And I absolutely love it because it's a lot more accessible and a lot easier to get products into a lids than into some hobby shops. And for someone like Herman, who lives out further away that used to not have a hobby shop, he could go to his local, for lack of a better place, mall and go and find a lids there. So I'm extremely excited about that opportunity to be able to have a lids there, or lids carrying products, or just I'm all for the availability for the cards. Remember in the 90s, man, you could go to Sam's, you could go to gas stations, you could go anywhere and pick up cards. Now, did they oversaturate the market? Of course they do. And Mr. Luber's very, very well, cognizant of that. He printed that in his white paper. So it's going to be a great case study to see that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, we've got a question here, and I want to get some of y'all's opinions on it from Kevin Jones. If I would be Fanatics, I'd be looking at buying out local card shops and rebranding them as a Fanatics experience, kind of like franchisees. And I thought it was interesting in the Topps announcement today that Topps and Fanatics put out that they included hobby shops in their announcement of thanking people and who they're focusing on in the future. They said to collectors, and they included LCSs in that, which I thought was a smart move, very smart move. But what do you guys think in terms of the hobby shops with this announcement? Chris, what do you think? Haven't heard from you, bud.
No. Good evening. Not from my car today. I don't think they want to get into the retail business other than selling through their lid stores. I think that's probably a little too much on their plate right now.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're just gonna, buy out Dave and Adams or buy out the local yokel card shop. I don't.
We're also forgetting that they control most of the, and I know they definitely, when I hear the Dallas advertisement for a Cowboys game for the Dallas Cowboys fan shop, it's a Fanatics experience.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to throw football cards into the fan shop.
Yep. Right.
That's a gimme.
Well, remember, Mike, at the old ballpark, you go to the ballpark and you see Topps cards. Yeah. There at the old ballpark. I mean, you saw that there. It was great.
Well, you've got some teams doing some weird stuff nowadays. The Bears are putting out, if you go to the Bears games, they have an actual exclusive card set that they produced that they're putting out this year. So, you've got some teams doing some interesting stuff on the side as well.
I wouldn't be surprised if, and I know brands do this already to some degree, but if Fanatics really makes the Fanatics experience being a big part of allocations. If you're a card store, it's not just going to be about putting cardboard cutouts that say Fanatics on them and different materials out. It's going to be about like, hey, are you doing trade nights? How often are you breaking? What are those looking like? What are best practices? They're going to have road shows where they come out and pitch how to run your card shop to make it the ultimate, Fanatics experience. They're going to call it more the collector experience, but they'll instill these things, and the companies that do it best will get the most allocations. The companies that innovate and allow them to bring those innovations across their entire network of dealers, they're all going to get more allocation.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what their MDF funds or their marketing funds are to help the card shops and those who really push and help support. We could see some pretty innovative stuff come. The bus idea, I didn't even think about that. I mean, having the Topps bus going to various places, that'd be fantastic. I mean, that'd be awesome. I mean, how about a cardmobile instead of the Weenie Mobile? Having that, something like, I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
off the cut, think about it. I mean, the possibilities are endless for what they could do.
And Brad, they have such great relationships with athletes and celebrities that bus is, going to come with your local baseball, football star on board and visiting the shop. So yeah, I think a lot of that can happen.
And Sue's pointed out something else in one of her many comments on the subject. The 2023 products, Topps 2023, is actually now just being designed.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you buy Topps now, you can use the people who actually know how to make cards. So when you get your license in 2023, you're good to go. You don't even have, they can finish this year and then they go to next year. So there's a continuity. Otherwise you would have been, like really scrambling, and it'll come out whenever Jim releases it. But somebody asked us to do a podcast episode on 1981 Donruss.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the similarity is that 81 Donruss and 81 Fleer, they had 3 to 4 months to get the cards ready to go between the time they got the judge made the final decision. It could be 5 or 6 months, but they did not have a lot of lead time between the time they got permission to put gum in the packs and sell cards and the time the packs hit the stands.
Yeah, well,
and we didn't have inserts in those days. We didn't have jersey cards. We didn't have autographs. We had photos and some text. So if you look at 81 Donruss, it's raffed with errors and updates. It's not even good stock. What's very important, you don't want your first product out of the gate, 2023 Fanatics, whatever they produce. If that's a disaster, what happens to everybody saying, you see, they should never have gotten the license?
And that's where I think, we were talking earlier about how it was kind of shocking how fast it happened. I think Fanatics saw that as something really important that they didn't want, because everyone was saying, hey, next year, Fanatics, we'll start seeing at least some unlicensed cards and get an idea of what they're going to be doing. Well, that's not the case anymore. Now, right out of the gate, it is going to be licensed stuff. It is going to come without that quote unquote stigma or whatever you want to call it attached to it. So I think that probably had a whole lot to do with getting a deal done with somebody, at least immediately.
Right. And as I said, they're already planning 2023, or they're just beginning the discussion. I know from the talks I've had with the Panini brand managers I used to work with at Beckett, it's 11 to 14 months for a product.
Yep.
And there was some discussion on the Net 54 boards about how even Upper Deck and 89 could do it quicker than that. Again, they were just doing photos and some stats. You can typeset that a lot easier than doing everything, than having to get, as I said, autographs and inserts and all that. Something else, maybe, if all goes well, we won't have redemption cards. Because if you have good relations with the athletes, they'll sign for you.
Yes.
Unless
Good
your name's
relations. This new Fanatics enterprise is co-owned by the players associations, so they better get rid of redemptions.
Yeah.
There's
So
buy-in. Rich,
Yeah.
your insight. I'm so glad you joined the show tonight to get that look back at what 81 looked like. That's really interesting. Do you feel like maybe we should temper our expectations even for 23? Because it seems like they don't want to they may not want to screw it up. They might just want to roll out similar Topps products, and it's really the innovation might come down the line in 24, 25.
I wouldn't temper may be the wrong word, but I think we will see continuity.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the most important thing, is to see continuity between, in other words, instead of a sudden jolt to the system, we will see flagship. It may be adjusted. We will see heritage. In fact, in 2 years from now, heritage will 74. And I can't wait to see. 74 is a blasette, but doing it in the modern technology, probably really cool. Yeah. 75 be even better the next year. We probably can get better things done, and they'll adjust as it goes on. You know, when you change formats on a radio station, you shouldn't do a sudden jolt. A lot of radio stations do, but you should do something gradual. You know, but sometimes it works. You know, when I was a young man and summer of 78, Mellow 92 WKTU with the same disc jockey still talking mellow became Disco 92. They hired a guy named Paco who's no longer with us. He was the late night disc jockey, and he was more of the disco type guy. And it went from 28th in the New York market the first in 4 months, dethroning WABC, you know, which was the AM powerhouse. Sometimes the rapid change works, but not for collectors. Yeah, I wrote an article many years ago, and I'll stick to the guns on this. Donruss really screwed up in 2001 when they took over the company, and they went to the rookie cards being one per box. There was a whole, and I was doing a lot of phone calls to dealers as part of my job at Beckett at the time. There were a lot of the breakers at the time, and there were breakers. Their collectors bought a box and threw up their hands and said, "I'm not buying this anymore." The product was a huge success because they had a Albert Pujols rookie, and I believe there were 500 signed cards. They had an Ichiro Suzuki rookie. You know, you're chasing the really hot card. But here's the thing. The people who had bought the cards for 18 years threw up their hands, and they threw away all the goodwill of coming back. The collectors didn't want the base cards. They wanted a full set. They would have even lived with a 1 and 4 from the rookie. Hey, 9 rookie cards in the box, 4 or 5 boxes to get the fine. Yeah. We can live with that. They had already done that in 97 and 98. So they were okay with that. But 1 per box was a bridge too far. And that's what I think one of the things Fanatics has to be careful with. I know people don't build sets the way they did 20 years ago, but you don't want to go a bridge too far and alienate your...
You don't want to alienate traditional collectors.
Somebody like Mike, somebody like Mike, who's a traditional collector.
Yes.
You don't want to alienate Mike. Chris, you're a traditional collector. You don't want
I've been alienated now for 12 years. So. Okay. I'm kind of disappointed to hear that maybe we're getting at least another 2 more years of Larashki and his gang at Topps before maybe we get the kind of change that we need in baseball. So,
well, Harry Houdini surprisingly had a quote that's really apropos, I think, to this situation. He said that an old trick done well always beats a new trick done poorly. And, that is a good thing for Topps to remember, especially from someone that likes new tricks.
Right. And as I said, I would not be surprised to see adjustments in products going forward. That's a natural course of events.
Yeah. Give us a 792 card base set, please.
I think that ship has sailed. But I think what they're doing now is perfectly fine. The 330, 330, 330. I think that's perfectly fine. You can get most of the key players in that way, and I'm fine with that.
I have a question I haven't heard discussed. What do you guys think? Is there any validity to this? But the Mint Collective was backed up to March, and for probably significant reasons and COVID and everything. But Was this announcement to be planned for the Mint Collective and came out early as a result of that move?
Oh, that's a
That's a really good
Wasn't
question.
that supposed to be at the end of January?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think they just didn't sell enough tickets.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I also think the COVID scare with Omicron has definitely also scared some people off.
I'm sure that's
know
part
that-
of it for sure, but I really, I'm not saying that's not at all a part of it, but the idea, if y'all looked at it, did it look like, did anybody here want to go, yeah, I'm excited to spend $1,000 to go to these sessions or whatever, you know, it's like, I don't know.
But there were 5 price points. You could actually spend as little as $15 to get in the door. You might not get the creme de la creme, panels, but I think it was $15 or $10 to get into the card show. There were 5 different levels. They didn't advertise it, but there were 5 different price levels to get in the door.
Yeah. Now, I've been speaking to the people because I'm scheduled to speak there, and so I was going to be headed to go down there, and from everybody that I had spoken to there, the pushback was due, or at least that they're talking about, was due to travel concerns and a lot of people not willing to make the flight risk, not willing to take the flight that had agreed to, whether it be speak or present there, that there were a lot of, bigger people that were up in the air. And so that was a main reason for that pushback. I'm sure there could be multiple reasons, but that's the one that I was communicated with as I was talking to some people.
And Drew, you're closer to the situation than we are, so I will accept that as a reasonable explanation.
Yeah, that's what I was told through multiple emails, through multiple people working the event. So that's what I would assume. But I also do think that they were. It is a tough task to get people out to Vegas, but like you said, Rich, you can get in there for cheap. And I think it's, an interesting show. It'll be interesting to see if it can still hold the power it had through March, because I do think they were building a decent social media buzz. And now having to continue that for a couple more months and not really have that planned out, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
And I see Mr. Newman has joined us in the crowd. Hello,
yes.
John.
What's up, John?
Hello,
Jump in.
Newman.
Let's make it 7.
Hello, Newman.
Yeah.
No, but
I think also for those of us who, are not in the hobby as a career, my day job is crazy busy in January. We're trying to kick off our year, and the end of the month is end of quarter. So we're closing, trying to close out a quarter with our sales. And, but March, that can actually be good. That's a natural time to travel. I can make, try to convince the wife to do a spring break to Vegas trip. That'd be kind of fun.
Unless you're in sales, then the end of March or any time in March is awful. It's horrible because that's the end of quarter. That's your big end of quarter push. I don't know. I don't know the men's hearts. I don't know anything like that. I just know that it got pushed back, and anytime you push back an event, it's never good. So,
but sometimes you have to for various reasons. I'll go with what Drew said. This has been a goofy situation for almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
And we've had to make a lot of pushbacks and a lot of changes, and there have been a lot of guarantees.
All right. Reminder that Hobby Hotline is supposed to be on.
I'm okay with accepting the party line on this one. Like, hey, maybe we haven't sold enough tickets, but if people are afraid of coming because of what's going on with COVID, you know what? That could be part of the reason you haven't sold enough tickets.
Yep, for sure.
So I know also 2 weeks before the new date for Mint Collective, there's actually a proposed big card show in Vegas.
Yep.
Yeah. We talked about this earlier about me making sure that I go to at least one Vegas show. I mean, I want to get out to all of the bigger shows this year. I want to go to the National, want to go to the Industry Summit, want to go to the Vegas. I want to go see Newman. I want to go see Herman. I want to go see Bo.
Speaking of wanting to see Mr. Newman, I grant wishes.
Mr. Newman.
I grant wishes,
Hello,
Brad.
Newman.
So there you go,
Hey,
Brad.
I'm still ugly. Nothing's changed.
You didn't schedule that plastic surgery yet? Golly, John.
How's it going, Mr. Newman?
His internet's
Dang
giving
it.
him fits.
At least I finally agree with something that John says, that he's ugly. So that's,
This is going to turn into Pick and Newman show. Can I be first in line?
right. Hey, he brought it on himself. He came on the show. So
Exactly.
um,
Exactly.
Yep.
Nope.
the
So I
Dallas
do
show.
The Dallas show. That's what I was about to say. With the Mint being pushed back, Mike and everyone, what do you guys think? Do you think a lot more people are going to start, maybe adjust those travel plans? Because a lot of people had that, this time scheduled off, planning on doing something. Now it's free.
Well, they're not the same week. The Dallas
No,
show.
I know. I'm just
next
saying,
weekend.
Right.
I think I'll be there. I think it'll be as big as normal. The Dallas show has become the it show to go to, say, sans the National. And it's living up to it. I was shocked how busy it was last time.
By the way, the 10-day forecast, and this is Texas where things can change, but the first 2 days of the show are supposed to be 60 degrees.
Nice.
Yeah,
For the Dallas card show. So come on down or come on up.
We have a question.
We got good weather.
We got a question in the chat here, and I'll ask you guys, but what are your thoughts on the this is from Peeps, and what are your thoughts on the speculation that Fanatics will want to somehow grade their own cards? And I will say this before we get into all of it, and I guess John will be back with us, I believe. But I know that one of the people involved in this has stake in CSG. They also have one of the people involved in the Fanatics deal also owns part of CSG. So my personal viewpoint has always been that CSG will ultimately be who Fanatics pairs with and wants to go with grading. I don't think they would actually grade their own cards, but that's just me. I don't think that the people involved would think in a million years that the hobby would accept it. I don't think that. I don't know. I just can't see that happening.
I would hope.
What do you
not.
guys
think?
Yeah, right, Chris. Yeah, I mean, did you guys think that this could happen? Or
yes, I totally think it could happen. I agree with Chris. Yeah, I do. I just think I think it'll live a very short life, because I think the hobby will go, hey, it's called third-party grading for a reason, right? You need a third party to assess the condition of a card, not the guy who just printed it. Now you could see some things like, remember Topps Encased and Topps.
Yes,
I think you could definitely.
And Fanatics does encase some of their cards.
Right. I could totally see that being a product.
They don't grade them, but they encase them.
Right. Right.
They've been doing that for at least, I want to say, 10 years too.
Yeah.
They've been doing that for quite a while.
Like
what about
autographed cards and whatnot?
What about if there's a product that, for lack of a better phrase, is nothing but PSA 10 or whatever 10s, and that's what the product is. So it comes out as a graded 10, and you're paying a high end dollar for one card, two cards, five, however many, but they're in mint condition, and they're coming out in mint condition.
20 years ago, card companies tried doing that by sending their cards to PSA or SGC or whatever, and then packaging them as pre-graded cards in their own product.
Yeah.
And it didn't really last that long.
That was 20 years ago. I mean, the hobby's now
like Fleer Authority, Topps Reserve was another one. I think Upper Deck had their own product.
Topps Reserve was PSA. We did something for Fleer products at Beckett
called Fleer Authority.
Fleer Authority.
That 70s card show asked, shouldn't we all expect 10s when we buy pack fresh cards? And that 70s, I don't know if this is going to change, but just to let you know, the standard from coming out of a shop right now, at least when it comes to Panini, is a PSA 8. It's the equivalent of a PSA 8 is what is deemed by them as acceptable to go out. And when they handle, like if you call it a Panini to get a card replaced, if they deem it below a PSA 8 in grade in their eyes, they'll replace it. So I don't think you should expect all 10s when you buy.
And you consider a lot of the Panini cards, especially from Prism and Select, that are getting graded. It's like 95% of them are getting graded 9 or greater.
Yeah.
So,
but I like the miscut.
I will tell you that when they had the industry summit in Dallas, and I went on a tour of the printing facility, and this is like 20 years or 15 years after the fact. The gentleman who was giving us a tour, so he was a senior manager at the printing facility, which, as we've noted, is literally down the street from my office, was still upset 15 years later that the Beckett grades were 8.5s and 9s on cards they produced. And they weren't upset at Beckett, but they were more upset that they didn't produce 9.5s and 10s. Right. They wanted to produce perfect cards themselves. So everybody wants good cards, but there's just imperfections in the process.
Well, it's that imperfection
handled as well.
Like. You know, some of us like the miscut cards. Some of us like the because to me a miscut card, it's kind of unique. There's not many that is like that exact same card. There may be, a dozen or however many a sheet gets cut off of, but for me that's a little special card. Again,
no, but the printing press gets upset. The printers get upset when they're not perfect. We like them. I like them. You like them.
Right.
But but the printers want to do a perfect job every time. They have pride in their work.
What I hear is like two conflicting ideas from collectors, though, because I do hear collectors, I think like that 70s card is saying they want to see 9s and 10s. Like that's what they expect. And you don't want to let like the manufacturers off the hook. You want them to create high quality. But I think I lean the same way, man, is that I like to see a fair amount of imperfections and that it's not that easy to get a 10 as a collector, because I condition scarcity is such a big part of things these days. On the grading question with Fanatics, you got to kind of do your best to read between the lines and read the posturing sometimes to get a feel for these things, I think. And early on, before even the Fanatics deal was announced, Luber was on last summer with Jeremy Lee, and he was asking questions like, hey, what would you think if Topps graded cards? He was really taking that thread pretty far. I think it must have been in his thought process. But most recently, say on like Lucas Tigers and Sports Cards Nonsense, when Josh was on last month, he's really backed off and said, hey, grading is, there's other people doing that game. And it seems like they're maybe just realizing what, they need to get their arms around right now. And it doesn't seem like grading is their first priority.
We're going to bring back in Mr. John Newman. We'll pull him back in. What's going on, Newman?
Hello, what's Newman. Up? I had two windows open, so I was getting feedback. I figured it out.
Don't hit the end broadcast button.
No, that's a one-time deal that I'll never live down, apparently. So
exactly.
So, Mr. Newman, what'd you think of all the news today, man?
I kind of, like a lot of people said, I kind of expected it, gun to head, as I like to say, but I thought it was gonna take a little bit longer. And the price is being reported $500 million, which is a lot of cash to everybody in this room. But that's, if you ask me, that's pretty cheap for a company like Topps with the pedigree. And if you read between the lines, does everyone know what how much debt Topps is in?
No.
About $500 million. So maybe even slightly more. So really what it looks like to me is Fanatics is basically paying the debt off and just taking over operations of Topps. So they got this for a little bit of a song and a dance. It's not their fault. If I'm Fanatics, I do it too. I'm not complaining for them. I mean, it makes sense for them, but this is a rare Michael Eisner loss in the right hand column for a guy that's used to getting the W's in the left hand column. And
the guy who was expecting a $600 million payday with that SPAC, and he's getting a big haircut on this. So
it's going to be interesting to see where he winds up. I mean, not that he has to actually work ever again in his life, but guys like that typically like to be the in charge of something. So it'll be interesting to see, does he ride off into the sunset, or does he get in charge? Does someone else put him in charge of everything?
No, he has a soccer team now, so he's and he's over 70. So
yeah, but you never know. People work forever. I mean, Abby Halliday, who has a famed realtor, she went to the office every day in her namesake office till she was 103. So,
wow, Michael Eisner's 79. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell you what. Well, that's apparently get good doctors when you're.
Yeah.
But now that the deal's been announced, it'll be interesting to see, who stays, who goes, who gets added on. That'll be sort of the next things that start to come out. I have spoke. I'm not going to mention names, to a few people at Tops and wished them luck. If they wanted to stay, I told them I hope their wishes, are met. I didn't get a lot of. I got a couple thumbs up back, and that, and that's all. I know no one's gonna. We can't have long, drawn out conversations about it, but there's a human element to all these kind of Wall Street type deals, and I just hope as many good people come out. As someone who lost their job in 2021, I know exactly, not a good feeling when it happens. So hopefully, the collateral damage is to a minimum.
I think with Eisner, I wonder if it's a mindset thing as much as anything, because you could see someone come from Disney thinking like, I ran this incredibly complex giant organization, and think like Tops is going to be sort of a retirement gig, when really I think people get into the industry and they realize like how competitive, how innovative you need to be.
Well,
you have to be on that tier with a big company. And I could see him just, not ready to get into that mindset.
Well, you're not wrong, Am. It turned out to be a retirement gig, not in the way, not in the way that it was scripted. Speaking of Disney movies, this movie was rewritten, from the script that Eisner had originally wrote. But it's still a lot of money. Eisner, don't worry, I'm not crying that much for him. He's going to be all right. I just think he's more embarrassed than poor.
Yeah.
So.
All righty. I think we're starting to approach the top of the hour. So this has been a good discussion.
That it has. Very much so. But yes, we are about 5 minutes away. Let's see, Eisen's running quite a few.
I was going to say, the person who probably really appreciates this news right now is Baseball Card Exchange.
Yes.
Are the people there because of all the news about the box and all the intrigue around whether or not that box is fake that Logan Paul bought. It's Pokemon, but obviously Baseball Card Exchange is in sports as well. And, I think we'll see what happens there, but it's good to take a little interest off that for a while.
I was about to say they've got to be the happiest, because that's some interesting. I've been reading up on that, and there's some crazy stuff going on over there.
I'm a little worried about my 87 Tops box now. That's BBCE wrapped.
You're still making them, John. Stop worrying about them.
I'm worried that someone took all the Will Clarks out of them. And
hey now.
So
easy on the Will Clarks.
I do hope that I'm thinking about the Pokemon thing. That's a big story.
Yeah.
And it would be a shame for all the real good work that Steve Hart has done.
Yep.
For this to cause some type of permanent black eye on grading, wrapping boxes and authenticating boxes. I mean, Steve Hart's not perfect, just like none of us are perfect.
Yeah.
And so I tend to get, it was a huge, if indeed it was, we still don't know, right?
Yeah.
What he's going to inspect it and all that kind of stuff. But if it's bad, it's a big bad. Like, hey, that's a costly error. It's not like you're grading an 87 Tops box, John. You know what I mean? It's a little bigger deal. But I don't think that should necessarily. It'd be like saying, well, PSA graded a fake card, so you should question every card that you've ever had graded. Well, that's a bunch of bull. And I would say the same for Steve Hart and Baseball Card Exchange. You can't, this doesn't make everything they've ever done bad, right?
Right.
Even in the Pokemon community, I feel like the sentiment so far has been they should stick to sports. I mean, they're pretty protective there, and that also sucks for them because I know they actually do a fair amount of Pokemon business and TCG business, but they have a narrative to run with. I think that they would still be respected in sports, but it could really hurt them in the TCG and obviously in insurance situations. And boy, that whole refund chain, if it is bad, is going to be really interesting. Of course, Shy already said that he'd refund Logan Paul. But those guys below them are really going to get leaned on really hard.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good subject for our Saturday episode to see if anything more plays out.
Yeah, and if Baseball Card Exchange is going to do Pokemon, I mean, I don't think it's anything wrong with expanding your line of expertise, but maybe get someone in the establishment that can do that work rather than just say, okay, we'll do it too. You know, I didn't talk about this story on my show this week because I wanted it to develop a little bit more.
Yeah.
It literally just broke, and I didn't want knowing. I think Mike hit it right on the head. This has the potential to be a bigger story than it already is, including there might be some litigation that comes down. I hope not, but you're talking almost $4 million, right? Someone might say, I'm not giving it back. I didn't know it was, I don't know where the buck stops or if it stops, but this has a lot of legs to it. And so I actually waited rather than talk about it yet. Probably mentioned it this week, but I wanted to wait to let a little bit more come out about it rather than jump the gun. So, but it has all the earmarkings of a bigger story as we go on.
But to Mike's point about PSA, the very first card they ever graded is now considered trim.
Yeah.
And by the way, the owner of that card, if he ever sells it, is going to do quite well with that card.
Oh,
he's going to make 3 to 5 to 10x on that card, even though he paid several million, because that card is so unique.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not the end of the world to make a mistake either.
I would own it. I would own it. In a heartbeat, I'd take it. I'd love it.
Just write a check,
Kevin
Mike.
Jones in the chat. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just telling Mike to write a check.
No.
Right.
To Kevin Jones in the chat. You didn't tune in on Saturday, did you? Our year in review show that turned out to be an hour on Bowman's Best.
That was a mislabeled show. That was an error show, Chris, because I labeled it year in review, and we did very little review, like you just said. It was all
about Wander. So Kevin just listened to last Saturday's show, and Chris and I BOVAted on it for a while.
It should be on the.
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
I listen the next
YouTube,
day.
Spotify, all that jazz. But yes, it is the top of the hour, y'all. So, I really appreciate everybody jumping on today. Such an awesome news day. Thank you to everyone, Chris, Brad, Rich, John, Mike, Yan, everybody. Thanks so much for joining the show. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Make sure to tune in this Saturday, of course, regular time, regular channel, and we will see you guys.
Rich just entered the eyewitness protection program.
He did. Yeah, Rich
I just
is
moved
gone.
my camera
He's
back
done.
to where it should be.
Well, y'all have a good evening, and we will see you guys on Saturday.
Keep on rocking in the free world.
There you go, brother.
Thanks, everyone.